This doesn't light your fireman, the pilot lights out.
This football team is coming into our place. We're standing in our way.
This is a game of the heart. Focus and finish.
All right, week 1 isn't over yet. We still have 2 games on tap tonight, so with 4 teams yet to play, many of you still have enough player minutes left to make a difference. For those of you who don't, after seeing how your players were utilized in week 1, you probably have a good feel for how your players are going to be used going forward. And with a good chunk of week 1 fantasy play in the books, the questions are already flowing like water. So let's get right to them. Anthony Castro writes in, Mike, you're one of the only people that had the balls to suggest that Colin Kaepernick would be a top quarterback this season. He racked up 30 points in my league and was the highest scoring player behind Peyton Manning. What gave you such a level of confidence to make a prediction like that? Did I say balls in that context? I got balls. Now, Anthony, here's the deal. Do you really need anyone to tell you that Adrian Peterson or Peyton Manning should be a top pick at their position? No, you need value, right? Once a player is already a proven commodity, you can just set your draft auto pick. But now you're going to see the pundits coming out of the woodwork flocking to Kaepernick. It's too late, because someone else already has him. Unless you listen to me. And you misunderstood what I said. I didn't say he would be one of the top quarterbacks. I said he would be the top quarterback. Look, Alex Smith was playing exceptional when he went down last year. And on any other team in the league, when he returned from his concussion, he would have gotten his starting gig back. Harbaugh is not a dope, and you just don't find players with Kaepernick's skill set combined with his size and his ability to make good decisions every day. He's a generational type player. Last season against Green Bay in the playoffs, he stunned the sporting world, right? He rushed for a record 181 yards for a quarterback. So the Packers focused on that, not letting it happen again. What happened? He threw for 412 yards and 3 TDs, no picks. Teams are going to be able to take one aspect or the other away from Kaepernick, but not both. And on some days, they won't be able to stop either. So listen to me now or hear me later. Colin Kaepernick will be the highest scoring fantasy quarterback in the NFL this season. And he's going to challenge Peyton Manning for the league MVP. Paul Markman writes in, Mike, you were all over Reggie Bush suggesting that he would be a top running back this season. But do you think week 1 was an aberration or an example of what's to come? So Paul, look, Bush was, I think, the second highest scoring back behind all day yesterday with 90 yards rushing and 101 yards receiving and a touchdown. Where I'm particularly excited about Bush is in PPR leagues. Now, Scott Engel and I discussed this in depth on This Week in Fantasy Football before the game. And if you haven't been tuning into that on weekends, you're really missing out. Bush is likely to have more yards receiving this season than rushing. If he's going to rush for 90 yards per game, that's saying a lot. Think about it. You've got 2 defenders in the secondary with their backs to the play on virtually every pass, chasing Calvin Johnson down the field. And that creates a lot of area for Bush to work underneath. And linebackers and safeties, just a no match for him in space. So we know he has a nose for the goal line. He always has. Absent injury, expect Bush to lead the league in yards from scrimmage this season and lead you to a fantasy championship. Matthew Morrow writes in, I was laughing when you said that Terrelle Pryor had fantasy value. But I'm not laughing anymore. I think you may be onto something. Hey, listen, you need to be able to separate the fact that a player may be on a poor team from the fact that he may put up quality fantasy production. The Raiders' offensive line sucks. Can I say sucks? They suck. But Pryor running around back there creates opportunity in the passing game as defenders leave their receivers when Pryor threatens the line of scrimmage, and it creates fantasy points when he tucks the ball and he runs. So he's going to have to develop as a pocket passer, and to be honest, with that offensive line, I'm not so sure how quickly that can happen. But while it may prevent the Raiders from winning, that won't prevent Pryor from putting up fantasy stats. The one thing you have to be cautious of here will be his turnovers, and to the extent he limits those, will be the extent of success you'll find using him. And one last point about Pryor. He's going to have plenty of garbage time when the Raiders are down by a ton, where the defense will just be playing prevent. So that'll help his fantasy production over time. Michael Foster writes in, I didn't take your suggestion to draft Colin Kaepernick, mainly because I thought without Crabtree, he would lack passing stats. But But after watching week 1, it's clear that Anquan Boldin and Vernon Davis will be his go-to guys. Do you recommend those guys? Well, as for Vernon Davis, contrary to popular opinion, I suggested that he should be the number 2 tight end off the board behind Jimmy Graham. I just think that with the size of a tight end and the speed and skills of a wide receiver, he's going to blossom into one of the league's finest. And I think with linebackers having to spy Kaepernick for fear that he might take off at any time, he's not going to see a lot of double teams. He's going to flourish. And like I said, to me, he's like a wide receiver in drag. As for Boldin, I don't know that you should count on that kind of production regularly in terms of yardage, but he's going to rack up tons of receptions, and owners in PPR leagues are going to love him. Now, one of the things we spent quite a bit of time on before draft day was the effect the loss of Andre Brown on the Giants would have on the fantasy value of both David Wilson and Eli Manning. Now, the instinctive reaction by most was that David Wilson's fantasy value would soar. The fact that he started off the season like he started off his career last year by putting the ball on the ground again was a disaster. Now, I don't know if that surprised anyone or not, but it was a disaster. And to compound the problem, perhaps even worse, his inability to pick up the blitz is going to keep him off the field in obvious passing downs, limiting his overall touches. Now, he's only 5'9", 205 pounds, but that's not the problem. If he just stood there and let somebody run over him, at least that would slow the pass rusher down. Right now, Darren Sproles has a better shot at keeping his quarterback upright than Wilson does keeping Manning on his feet. He couldn't block you or I on third down at the moment. So just diving at people's feet and whiffing is problematic for Manning. And no doubt it's going to have a negative effect on his fantasy prowess, as it's going to lead to sacks and turnovers. The Giants don't have a veteran to plug in right now, so Wilson will probably get run out there again. But don't be surprised if the Giants pick up a guy with some experience off the street. Hey, I don't know if it was luck or not. I'd like to think I know a thing or two, but I got a lot of things right in week 1. But to be fair, anyone who started Jared Cook at tight end this week is a better man than I. And considering the fact that if you listen to me, you'd been playing Julius Thomas Thursday night, that says quite a bit. If you have a question that you want answered here on the show, shoot me an email or hit me up with a tweet. I won't be able to get to them all here on the show, but if not, I'll tweet you back with my best advice. And be sure to tune in to the Roto Experts Fantasy Football News Notes and Analysis segment every weekday. I'll be here to keep you current and ahead of the competition. And on weekends, come back for This Week in Fantasy Football as I team up with the King, Scott Engel, covering the week that was, the week that will be, and answering your viewer questions. For Roto Experts, I'm Mike Cardano. Enjoy the games tonight, everyone.